Okay, the objective for this video is to be able to convert fractions into decimals. Okay, so let's get started. Well, first up, I have written up here some fractions that I want you to go ahead and memorize. I believe if you do memorize these, it will help you do many common problems that you'll see in the future more quickly than it would if you had to go ahead and work these out. So let's go ahead, let's review a few that you probably already know. 1/2 is 0.5, or another way of saying this is 5/10. If you think about the fraction 5/10, if you divide the top and the bottom by 5, you get 1/2. Those are equivalent fractions. And so since this is 5/10, we also read this decimal, since this is in the first place after the decimal is the tenths place. This decimal we read as 5/10. So that can kind of help you a little bit get the relationship between a decimal as being 5/10 in the tenths place and the 5/10 as a fraction. Some other common ones that we probably already do know is 1/4 is 0.25. And again, we read this, since this is the 2 is in the tenths place, the 5 is in the actual hundredths place, we read this as 25 hundredths, 25 hundredths, and we could write that as a fraction, 25 over 100. And we know again, if we simplify this fraction, we get the equivalent fraction of 1/4. Most people know that 3/4 is 0.75 or 75 over 100. And so these are ones that we already know. Maybe you don't know yet, but 1/8 is actually 0.125. You may be able to recognize this because if this is 25, half of 25 is 12.5. So half of 0.25 is 0.125. If that was more confusing for you, then sorry, you don't need to know that. But 125, and this is now in the thousandths place. And if you were to simplify 125 over 1,000, it would simplify to 1/8. Okay, just a few more. 3/8 is 0.375. 5/8 is 0.625. And 7/8 is 0.875. Okay, so there you have the very common, I would say most common maybe, fractions that you'll come across. So these I do, again, would like for you to memorize if you cannot derive it very quickly on your own. Okay, and then the last two is 1/3. We know 1/3, most people know this already, is 0.3 repeating, and 2/3 is 0.6 repeating. And you could see how this, you could check these, and you could check also these as well by doing it another way, and that's simply to do the division. 3 divided by 1, right? Or it's 1 divided by 3, but we write it this way, right? Here goes a 0, and then 3 goes into 10, 3 times, 9, bring down the 1. Keep going, 3 times 3 is 9, and so on, and it will continue forever. So that's how we get 0.3 repeating. Okay, and same thing with 6. And again, you could have done any of these by doing 7 divided by 8, 7, and you would solve this out, and you would eventually get 8.75. Okay, let's erase this and let's go ahead and do a few of the other ones that are not quite as common maybe. So let's just say I have, we'll do a few easy ones, 3/10. Well, again, we know that 3/10 is there's a 3 in the tenths spot. Very simple. We read this decimal. This is the tenth spot. There's 3 in the tenth spot. How about 2/5? Well, again, we could do this a few different ways. We could do 5 into 2. Here's the decimal. We'll put a 0 here. 5 into 20 is 4, and we could get 0.4. The other way to do that is to try to make this bottom number a multiple of 10, or not a multiple of 10, but a, I should say an exponent of 10 maybe. 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. So if you can see that, well, if I multiply the top and the bottom by 2, then I will get the denominator of 10. And I will get the numerator of 4, and now I have 4/10, and now it's just like this problem. If I know it's 4/10, and I know that the 4 goes in the tenths spot, then that's another way to get that decimal. If we have the decimal, say for example 23/100, well, I know that I can just simply put a 0.23 into the hundredths. This is 23 hundredths. This is 23 hundredths. It's going to the hundredths place. If I had the fraction 17/25, again, I could divide it out, but a better way is, how can I make this bottom become 100? Well, simply multiply times 4, and the bottom becomes 25 times 4 is 100, and the top is going to be, let's see, 4 times 7 is 28, 4 times 10 is 40, so 40 plus 28 is 68. Now I have 68 hundredths, and that is 0.68. Piece of cake. I'll just do one more, last one for you. Maybe it's difficult, maybe it's not. If you memorize the other ones, it might not be. We can know that 9 over 125. If you memorize that 1/8 is 0.125, you would know 125 times 8 is 1,000. So if we multiply the top and the bottom by 8, we could get 1,000 on the bottom, and then 9 times 8 is 72, and 72 thousandths. Now you got to be careful. That's not correct. That is not correct. That is 72 is in the hundredths place. So we want it to go to the thousandths place. So now here we have 1, that's the tenths, hundredths, thousandths place. This is 72 thousandths. You have to be very careful with that. Now, last but not least, if you saw 9 over 125 and you just didn't have a clue, forgot that that was times, you could multiply times 8 and get 1,000. Again, you could still always go back and do it the other way by dividing this out. That is another option to do. So 9 divided by 125. Remember, we put the decimal straight up because we don't have to move it over here. And then we'll just add a couple zeros just to see how many we need. Well, let's see. 125 does not go into 9. 125 does not go into 90. 125 does go into 900. And I believe it does go in 7 times. So we can put our zeros here. And 7 times 125, I do believe, is 875. We subtract this and we get 250 remaining when we bring down the 0. And 125 goes twice into to 50. And so again, we still get the same answer the other way. Those are two ways to convert fractions to decimals. All right, please, as always, write a summary for this concept, one that will help you remember how to convert fractions to decimals, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.